What's going on, people? What's going on, SG? We're back in the building. You know what time it is. You already know what it is. You know the vibes. We're coming up close to Christmas. For all those who celebrate it, a Merry Christmas, early Merry Christmas to you. Obviously today, you guys can obviously see on your screens just a few talking points to kind of go through in today's video. We got Klopp, obviously talking about the fans, calling them out, talking about the atmosphere. We'll talk about that for a sec. And obviously, we had the game against West Ham United earlier on in the week where Liverpool obviously ran out 5-1 winners and are now through to the next round of the EFL Cup. But, there was a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk about one Darwin Nunez. Yes, Darwin Nunez. I mean, this guy can't go a game without someone talking about him, whether it's good or bad. He is a hot topic for Liverpool fans. And yeah, just kind of taking a look at him, potentially playing in a different position, which is news to me. But, we'll get into that. And last but not least, taking a look at Elliot and Jones. Now, two players who... two young players. A lot has been said about them, whether we think they're good enough, to play for Liverpool Football Club, whatever that actually means, whether they're good enough to, start in the first team and all these other various different things. Taking a little look at that, having a little conversation, surrounding that, just kind of giving you my thoughts and opinions on a bit of Liverpool news. Let me know, obviously, what you guys think in the comment section, please, below. Make sure you're smashing that like, make sure you're sharing, and please, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. We are so close to that 900 subscriber. Let's get it.
Now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
What's going on, people? What is going on? Yes, we're back in the building. As I mentioned before, in the intro, just taking a look at a couple of things that have piqued my interest, a couple of things that have been spoken about in the last 24, 48 hours by the time this video obviously drops. Please make sure, as I mentioned before, that you are smashing that like button for me, and make sure you're subscribing to the channel as well. So where should we start? We'll start off with the one of the first topics that I mentioned. And that's this man here, Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Norbert Klopp, Liverpool manager. Now, in the game against West Ham, as I mentioned, Liverpool running out 5-1 winners, so, everything was all good. We're through to the next round of the League Cup. Not an important competition, would I say, if I'm being totally honest with you, but it's a competition that we're in, and of course every competition you do want to win. Obviously now I'd say now it actually gets somewhat interesting in regards to the competition now. Semi-final against Fulham, going to be tough games, but I expect Liverpool to obviously make it through. Now, after the game, Jurgen Klopp, doing his press conferences, talking about the game and talking about a few other things and stuff like that. He had something to say. It's posted out by Fabrizio Romano. Klopp, I was not overly happy with the atmosphere behind me. I wondered what they wanted. We need Anfield on their toes without me being in an argument with their coach or whatever. If you're not in the right shape, please give your, didn't say please, but he actually said give your ticket to someone else. Now, if I can get the video actually up for you guys, obviously we'll get the full clip here.
We need Anfield on Saturday. Without Anfield, I would say after they didn't play this week, just to make sure I know sorry, they didn't play. They prepare for this game, and who knows a little bit about them, they will be prepared. So we need Anfield on their toes from the first second, without me having an argument with the opposition coach, whatever. We need you from the first second. So if you really want, if it's too much football in December, I don't know, sorry, we have to play it as well. But if you are not in the right shape, give your ticket to somebody else.
So yeah, you know, Klopp obviously calling out the fans. Now, usually, I don't really care about this kind of stuff. I'll be honest with you. I usually don't care, and this time I decided to bite the bullet and speak on it. Now, the only reason why I decided to speak on this and do a kind of topic like a little 2-minute segment talking about this is because the reaction from this is where I've been a little bit confused in terms of Liverpool fans and their reaction to it. Now, I've always asked this question, obviously more so last season, with how poor Liverpool were and all that kind of stuff surrounding last season, questions around Jurgen Klopp, can he really get Liverpool back up to competing and things like that, potentially winning titles and winning competitions, etc., etc. And you guys already know my feelings on Jurgen Klopp anyway. I'm not going to delve into that right now, but obviously, and I'm not 100% sure. I feel like he has said something about the atmosphere before, like maybe a few seasons ago. Again, I'm not 100% sure, so please do not take what I'm saying as gospel, but I feel like he has mentioned something like this before. But the reaction to it, and this is what I've asked before, is the question I've asked before is, do people support Liverpool or do they support Klopp? Because sometimes I do get confused, and I feel like there's almost blurred lines, to it at times, because it almost feels like anything this guy says, and again, this might just be a me problem, and I'm not afraid to say that, and it's not really a big deal, but I feel like anytime he says something, people just either they latch onto it, or it's like, okay, well, he said it, so it must be true, or he said it, so you know what, we're just going to listen to him, and managers never get it wrong, and etc., etc. And we saw that quite a lot last season in terms of like the divide, with Jurgen Klopp. In terms of just so many different things surrounding the season, just because of how the season obviously went. And when I see comments like this, again, by the way, just to let it be known, I have no problem with what Jurgen Klopp actually said. Zero. He has every right to call it out, every right to say what he feels. At the end of the day, he's there on the dugout every single match day. He's the one who has to listen to the fans, or not listen to the fans, in this case. And if he feels like the fans are not really pulling their weight, giving their end of the bargain, if they're not really doing that when we are playing matches at home, and he feels that. Now, I don't feel like this is something that he's just set off on a whim. I don't feel like, oh, just because of the game against West Ham, that's the only time he's thought it. I feel like this is something that he's probably thought about before in other games this season and things like that. And obviously, maybe, especially with all the talk around that Manchester United game, people were saying we're going to win 5s and 6s. And really, those people are now looking quite embarrassed because Liverpool ended up playing out a 0-0 draw. And we didn't go for that 7-0 win and stuff like that. And we didn't really play particularly that great. And, all of those kind of different things. And the crowd, even on that day, I think Gary Neville mentioned it in, was it after the game or in commentary? I can't remember. But I just remember him mentioning about, the atmosphere at Liverpool, at Anfield, that game, was the quietest he's ever heard it. And this is for a Liverpool versus Manchester United game. And we were that quiet. It's embarrassing, of course. Do you know what I mean? Because we do have a reputation. Well, I would say we have a European reputation in terms of European nights, and really only Champions League nights. But we'll say European nights. That's when the crowd are really, making as much noise as possible in the last few seasons. Let me not speak for the history of Liverpool, because I can't really speak to that. But just in terms of in the last few seasons, European nights, we do have that kind of history, making as much noise. We all remember the Barcelona games, even the Atletico Madrid game where we got knocked out. Again, the fans were really, really, playing their part and things like that. Everybody who was there. So I don't feel like this is something that he's just decided, oh yeah, just that one game was the one game that, thought. I think maybe he's thought about it. Maybe it's been in the back of his mind. Again, people mentioned, Klopp might not have social media, but these people are not dumb, and they know what kind of goes on, around social media and things like that. And then sometimes these kind of things, they seep into, the stadium and stuff like that. I look at things like, the conversations surrounding like Darwin Nunez and stuff like that. I feel like he has to talk about it in a certain way, because he hears and he sees and he knows what, the general consensus with people, in and around him, whether it be social media or not, whether you even want to believe it, whether you feel, oh, social media doesn't matter, players, they are looking at this stuff. Come on, man, we're not naive, or you shouldn't be so naive if you are, in believing that, oh, Klopp's never ever looked at social media once in his life and he doesn't have a clue. Come on, man, do you know what I mean? That would be silly to think so. So, after that game, obviously you've seen the video, you've seen what he said. The reaction from fans, I feel like honestly, I just don't understand it sometimes. Like, we'll sit here and we'll make every excuse under the sun. Ticketing issues, there's too many tourists in there, it's too young in there, or it's too old in there, there's just seems to be an excuse for everything. There's just always has to be something that this is the reason why. It's not just plain black and white, exactly what Klopp is more or less trying to say, which is, you guys are not patterning up, you're not doing, you're not pulling your end of the bargain, kind of thing, in this context, in this kind of situation. And instead of just saying, okay, we need to kind of just buck up our ideas, all I've seen plastered around social media is just constant, just excuses. But then we'll be the first ones to laugh at Arsenal, call them the library and stuff like that. It's only really been in the last like 18 months, that people probably started putting a bit more respect on Arsenal, whether it's true or not or whatever. That's just been the fact of the situation. We call the Etihad the empty had. We laugh at Manchester United's atmosphere. Like, we constantly seem to want to get onto everybody else, about their own atmospheres. But then when it comes to our own atmosphere, sometimes I'm like, you need to start looking in the mirror first and foremost. Do you get? I'm trying to hold yourself accountable. There doesn't need to be excuses. It's just about just pattern up. That is it. Like, that should have been it anyway. That's what I expected to see. But then sometimes I have to sit there and remember, common sense isn't always that common. Do you know what I mean? It's just one of those kind of things, man. It's like, we don't need to go down this kind of road of, you know, um, just giving out so many different excuses and having so many various different reasons as to why this and that. And I'm not, and by the way, I'm not even saying that some of the excuses are not even necessarily valid, but the long and short of it isn't any of the excuses that have come up. It's got nothing to do with the ticketing, got nothing to do with the age and stuff like that. These are things that have been happening throughout time anyway. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Maybe now, not like maybe now more so on a larger scale due to social media being able to highlight these kind of things, and with the way that the game's going and stuff like that. But in a general sense, like, I look at it and I just think to myself, guys, we just need to pattern up as a fan base. That is it. That's all we need to do. So what's probably going to happen is on the game on Saturday against Arsenal, the fans are going to be super, super loud, and we're going to pray that obviously that helps with Liverpool, obviously then getting their victory and blah, blah, blah. If Liverpool go down or whatever, we'll then really see in terms of how the crowd obviously behave and stuff like that, and then we can obviously take it from there. What I will say though is, and this is me giving an excuse, would I say, if I'm calling everything else an excuse, I'm going to give this one as an excuse as well. What I will say is, at the same time, them on the pitch need to pattern up too. Like, I'm sorry, but there's no, like, again, and we'll talk more about this in my mid-season review, but there's no way that we've watched this football this season and been that impressed. Like, some people I know are overly gassed over small things. I get it, and there has been some good games and stuff like that. But overall, I'm not going to sit here and say I've been overly impressed with the way that Liverpool have been playing, and all of that kind of stuff. So then that also plays its part as well. That's then, for me anyway, I look at that and say, you need to pull your end of the bargain too, because if you're not showing us something, then how do you then expect us to then jump up and down and do this and do that and blah blah blah? Again, maybe the two don't need to be linear. They don't need to they don't need excuse me, they don't need to correlate with each other. Maybe so I could be just talking out my ass, but in terms of excuses, that's probably the only one I've heard from people where I've said that makes sense. You know what I mean? If you don't feel like the team's really performing like that, feel like just in a general sense, then of course it's going to be a little bit of a downer inside the stadium. But we know how Anfield is, and we know how the players are when it comes to Anfield, in terms of how they, how they respond to Anfield in the stadium. If the crowd is loud and they're hyped, and from minute 1 to 90, then the players feel it, and the opposition feels that even more so. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it's going to be such an interesting game against Arsenal, and obviously I'll do my preview for that dropping on the Saturday. But I feel like it's going to be so interesting to see how Arsenal deal with the what I'm hoping to be a fantastic atmosphere, for that game. But like I said, it's about patterning yourself up. Stop worrying about other people. Stop. Now we can't be laughing at anybody else, because our manager has now done the same thing that we've seen Pep Guardiola do, that we've heard other managers do, and things like that. So now we need to just turn it around and then say, okay, cool. You know what? We've had the time to look in the mirror. Cool. We understand. We clearly weren't really pulling our weight. Let's move on, and then we can go from there. End of it, and then we move, kind of thing. But of course, the boys then need to be able to do their job on the pitch to help us with that, kind of thing. As much as this thing of through thick and thin and stuff, this ain't no marriage. You get what I'm trying to say? Like it's not that deep. At the end of the day, we all got lives outside of this, football kind of thing. Or I'd like to hope people have got lives outside of this football. Please do not make football that serious, a serious thing in your life. So if that is the case, then of course there's going to be other factors potentially at play in certain situations. I get that, but draw a line under it. Come Saturday, atmosphere is going to be on 100, flares the whole night, like as if it's a European night, that kind of vibe. It's an early evening kind of kickoff, I believe, anyway, on the Saturday. So yeah, man, let's kind of wait and see, and then we take it from there. But like I said, it was very ironic listening to what Jurgen Klopp obviously had to say, but not even really ironic from what he had to say, just more the reaction from fans and the excuses that I heard, afterwards. But it is what it is. It is what it is. Now, moving on to the excuse me, the next kind of topic wanted to take a quick look at, and that's these two on the screen. That is these two on the screen, and that is Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones. Now, two players for Liverpool who have, I won't even say split a fan base. I feel like majority, in my opinion, again, I could be so wrong, and I really don't want to make out like what I'm saying is factual, because it isn't. But from what I see and hear from people, majority don't really believe that these guys are the guys, and the minority do believe that these guys are the guys, and they're good enough to be part of the first team, and blah blah blah. Obviously, in the game against West Ham, we had obviously Harvey Elliott. They both started. Obviously, Jones in his normal left central midfield position. He had Harvey Elliott playing on the right wing this time in place of Mo Salah, and I felt like Harvey Elliott did really really well in the game, and I felt like Curtis Jones did really really well in this game. Obviously, we're playing West Ham in a Carabao Cup tie. Both sides rotated, so there's only so much that I can realistically take from something like that. But ultimately, they did what they needed to do. And obviously, Curtis Jones getting himself 2 goals in the game as well. So, all good and positive things in that regards. But, we look at these two players. Both been here for some time. Obviously, Jones longer. He's been through the academy and stuff like that. Played under Steven Gerrard, and make it into this first team. He's captain the side as well. Boyhood club and all this kind of thing. Then you obviously got Harvey Elliott, signed him from Fulham. He didn't come through our academy or anything like that, but we've developed him since he's come from Fulham. And obviously went out on loan as well to Blackburn. And it's a tricky one with these two. It's a real tricky one, honestly. Like I find it difficult when it comes to these two in terms of how do you see things? How do you see them? In a general sense, if I'm being totally honest with you. And why I say that is because they're always going to divide opinion, in my opinion, until they get to a level either that we're all, or the majority, are going to be satisfied with, or we sell them. It really is, I think there's not going to be any real middle ground, between the two players. It's almost like the Darwin Nunez thing of it's always got to be hyped up to some mad level, or completely criticizing their shit and blah blah blah. Now, the way I look at those two players is, I think they're very good squad options in the team. I think if everybody was fit, they probably don't make the team. If everyone was fit and we were back in the Champions League, as an example, just don't feel like they both make the team like that. Maybe Jones, and then that would more depend on, you know, in terms of like other positions and stuff like that. I.e., do we have a six? If we do have a six, or he has that mad faith in Endo, McAllister's going to be there, Szoboszlai is going to be there, Gravenberch is going to be there. You know, there's going to be a lot of players that he's going to be battling with, and obviously Elliot, it's a tricky one because again, right central midfield, he ain't getting that spot. Right wing, he ain't getting that spot. So then you're just a bit like, ooh, where does he kind of play? Now Elliot's been coming in, come off the bench. Obviously, remember he scored that late winner against Crystal Palace. It's a tricky one with him, I believe. With him, I feel like it's going to be more difficult purely because of the position that we don't really know. 1 minute he's right central midfielder. We're playing him there on a consistent basis. Obviously, last season we were doing that quite a lot. This season he's played there in most games, I would say, and then obviously he played right wing the other day. He ain't gonna get into that right wing slot, so I think we that's just something. And the only way he gets into that slot is if we then decide to potentially, which is something that I'm quite open to, is maybe putting Mo Salah up front in that kind of role, just to play the number 9 kind of position. And then you can get Elliot in there. Again, that could be something that could potentially work. I don't know. You know what I mean? Because then right central midfield, unless you're dropping Szoboszlai, or you're pushing Szoboszlai potentially to the left central midfield, but then that means Jones isn't playing. You know, there's too many ifs and buts. And for me, obviously, they're still young. Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm saying, oh yeah, they're the finished article now and blah, blah, blah. So they've got room to be able to develop. I just think that with these two, it's going to be difficult. If Liverpool are trying to go that way, I feel like it's just going to be difficult. Like, we're not talking about young talents like a Pedri or Bellingham or Musiala's or the Gavis. And, you know, we're not talking about players of that kind of ilk where they demand the respect of being able to play for a top club. They're not that level. And I'm not saying they have to be, by the way, but they're not of that level. So because they're not at that level, they're just at the normal average kind of level for just an average footballer, average Premier League footballer. We're now looking at them and just thinking, it's just one of those. Yeah, maybe he can come in this game. Maybe he can come in that game. But I don't think we're going to be saying that about Musiala or about Bellingham or about Pedri or about Gavi. Do you get what I'm trying to say? We don't say that about those kind of players. You know, why? Because those players are good enough that it doesn't even really matter. Musiala and Bellingham playing for 2 top clubs around, especially Bellingham, but both of them playing for 2 of the best clubs in world football. Young players, they can command their place in the team. Why? Because they're good enough. You know, they've shown that they've been good enough. Have Elliot and Curtis Jones shown that they've been good enough like that? In patches, they have. There are some games I thought Elliot looks good. Yeah, I mean, he showcases skills. You know, he's really good coming in off that right-hand side. He can play, you know, cute little passes in behind. You know, he can pick up the ball from deep, you know, pop it around and stuff like that. He's not fast or anything like that, but, you know, he likes to keep the ball and dribble and do these kind of, you know, get himself into spaces and blah, blah, blah. Curtis Jones, you know, we saw the back end of last season. I think it just depends on what level you're looking at a Liverpool Football Club to then say whether you believe that these players will be able to make it into the first team. Because of their level now, if you believe that they are good enough to be in the first team, then that's the kind of level that you see kind of Liverpool at. If not, then there'll be the squad options. I believe that they both are. And for me, that's absolutely fine to be a squad option. Maybe not so much for Curtis Jones. He might be looking at it thinking, nah, man, I had a good back end of last season. Started this season reasonably well. You know, obviously suspension, and they picked up a little, I think, injury and stuff like that. Of course, these things are going to derail you in a season. And the season's not even halfway done by the time this video is posted out. You know what I mean? We're not even at that halfway point in the Premier League, let alone everything else. So there's still so much football left to play. There's still so much development that could potentially be made and all these kind of various different things. So nothing is said and done at this point in time. But I do believe that in my opinion, they're on borrowed time. You know, there's only going to be so much longer that you can keep looking at them and saying, okay, yeah, cool. Again, I don't think they're even at the Foden level, you know, of players who you're confident in them starting in your team. Obviously, I know it's all different styles and stuff like that, and I get that, but, you know, I feel like some of these players are ahead now. We can add whatever reason, whatever the context, whatever it is you want to say. Yes, some of these players have played more. They've been trusted by their manager more. Some people, it's just because of the circumstance of the situation. I get all of that, but we're here now. we are here now. So it just really depends on really the patience. We don't know if a new manager were to come in, if Klopp leaves at the end of his contract, what then happens then? There's so many different kind of things, that could potentially happen, that it is just really a waiting game, with both of these two players. That's why I am sitting there kind of looking, thinking, I would love for these guys to make it. I like Curtis Jones especially, watching him with the youth teams, especially under Steven Gerrard. But even before that, this guy was lighting it up, proper lighting it up, but then just kind of stalled a little bit. Obviously, it didn't help because our team was so good that you just wasn't going to get in unless you were a special talent. He's not really that. Maybe now is the time for him to almost, it's like, because Liverpool are not at the top yet, they're not at their imperious best, and we're not the best team and all this kind of stuff at this moment in time. Maybe this might be the period where you're like, I can get my way into the team. A bit like a Henderson, not that good, but he's good enough to get himself into the team. Now you become a mainstay, and then obviously we've got other better players in and around you to be able to do your thing. Maybe they both might be looking at it from that situation. Heck, for all I know, Klopp's got a plan for Elliot. He's saying, nah, when Salah goes, you're going to be the right winger. We're all looking at right wingers. We're all looking at other players to play that position. Klopp might be looking at it thinking, nah, man, I'm super good. Like, Elliot will be there. Don't worry. We have no idea. We don't actually know. I can only go based on everything that we're seeing now. But I do think it is quite interesting watching these two, especially this season. Both had good games, bad games. Both come in and out of the side. Is the rotation helping some of these players? I don't know, because I don't feel like many players are finding rhythm other than obviously the main starters, like your Trents and Virgils and Alissons and Salah to a certain degree. These players, obviously, they're always going to play, but the rest of them, I don't feel like they have much rhythm. They're in the team 1 week, out of the team the next, in for 2 games, out again. It's constant chopper change, which is fine, which can be fine, but you almost need everyone at that same level. So that's why I always refer it back to Manchester City. Obviously, there's going to be a pecking order. Obviously, there's not every player is of the exact same level, but they're of such a high quantity of level, or however you want to quantify it in terms of the level, that like Mahrez can step in whenever, and the team isn't gonna, look so much worse than it originally did if he wasn't playing. Sterling, when he was there, all of these kind of players, it's just not gonna make too much of a difference. And I think that's why I look at these two, and maybe Klopp's trying to create that. Maybe he's trying to copy that in that kind of sense. Hey, let's wait and see. Hopefully it works out for him. Let's just wait. But I just find this interesting in regards to Elliot and Jones. But you guys let me know what you think about those two and stuff like that, in terms of how you see their role within the team, and what type of, what kind of roles do you think that they're going to have, in the future. So, well, this season anyway. But let's move on to the last point I wanted to touch on. You already heard me talking about him in the intro, and that is Darwin Nunez. So you guys can obviously see here, I've got a heat map from 2 seasons. So last season for Liverpool, this is Darwin Nunez heat map in the Premier League, and then Benfica's heat map in 21-22 season in the Primeira Liga. I think I said it correctly. Apologies if I said it wrong, but the Portuguese league. So yeah, this is just kind of showing, because one thing I saw, again, seeing a lot of people talking about it, is obviously we saw this, Darwin Nunez playing on that left-hand side in the game. Obviously we had, what's his name, Gakpo up top, and then obviously Elliot out there on the right-hand side. And a lot of people have obviously said, nope, this is Darwin's position. This is the position he's got to play. He's got to stay there, and blah, 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 blah. And again, I am so baffled. I'm going to get this up, actually. So hopefully you guys can see this. Yeah, you can see it. All right, so this is his Benfica kind of stats. Obviously, this is the year just before we signed him. Fantastic. 41 games, 34 goals, 4 assists, 38 goals and assists in 41 games. Bad man. Seeing that season, played 28 of his games, obviously as centre forward, second striker a couple times. He actually played 5 games as a out and out, I guess, left winger. He actually scored 10 goals in that time, which is crazy. Less games than he did as a second striker. But scored more goals, which is very, very interesting. And we know that he's a player who likes to kind of come in off of that left-hand side. We've seen it many, many a time. And we played him there, a couple of times as Well, obviously this is him. Looking at the season that we obviously signed him, 19 goals and assists, with 15 of those being goals in 42 games. It's all right. Um, Nothing to really write home about, but you know, it is what it is. Oh, if I just get this back up again, my apologies, people. But yeah, if we look at that there, you can see he played 17 games as a left winger last season. Obviously, of course, we had the injury to Luis Diaz, so he had to kind of fill in that spot. 17 games, scored 7 goals, got 2 assists. Centre forward last season, 25 times, 8 goals and 2 assists. So kind of really similar stats, to be honest with you. But he played a lot more games as a centre forward. Now, one of the things that I kept saying about Darwin Nunez last season was I don't personally see this guy as a number 9. I don't see him like that. I understand why people do see him like that, and I get it. But for all of the things that people say about him, that doesn't really scream to me number 9. It more screams to me as someone who should be playing on the wing. Someone who's quite unpredictable. He don't even know half the time what he's actually doing. Someone who's got that raw pace, can get in behind. I almost feel like it's tailor made for him in the kind of way that we had Mo Salah when he first joined, who was lightning quick, getting in behind defenses and scoring those kind of goals. I feel like you could have been doing that for Darwin Nunez. The thing is, obviously, he is a striker. He is actually an actual striker. That's the position that he's mostly played throughout his career. But he's a striker. Obviously, likes to pull out to the left and all that, fancy stuff. But he's a striker. That's what he would probably say that he actually is, if he could pick a position to actually play him. So when we're looking at, if I go up here again, if I'm showing you like the heat maps and stuff like that, we can see here, off that left hand side, you can see the Benfica one at the top. Off that left hand side, coming in. Again, the Liverpool one at the bottom, off that left hand side, coming in. Those are the kind of areas. By the way, don't ask me what he's doing back here in this position. I'm assuming it's like defensive situations, but yeah, I found that joke as to why you're in the goalkeeper territory. But it is what it is with Darwin. He confuses everyone. But that's the kind of positions he does like to, take up. So with that being said, that was always my thinking and thought. Not because it's about tarnishing him or, calling him dead or whatever people think. It's about looking at this player and understanding the way that we play. The way that we play, he just doesn't fit that. Yes, has he improved? 100%. But I was thinking about this actually earlier on today. It's like saying to a guy who's training for a 100-meter race, yeah? He's training. Now, let's say before, when he starts off his training, just as an example, just off the top of my head, I don't know what the actual world record is, but let's say as an example, he's always getting, I don't know, 10.5 seconds as an example, but he's always finishing dead last in the race, but he's finishing on 10.5 seconds. Now, in a year's time, he keeps on training, keeps on doing his thing. Now he gets it down to 10 seconds, but he's still always finishing last in the race. Now, he's improved 100%, but he's still always finishing last. And that's the same way I look at, someone like Nunez is, yeah, he's improved, but I mean, he ain't finished, like, he's still finishing dead last in the race. You get him second to last if you want to be kind. He's not finishing first. Him improving hasn't improved him so much that he's now winning these races. No, the other guys are still better than him. You get what I'm trying to say? In that position anyway, and because of the way that we play. So that's why I've always said, you might as well just stick him out there on the left. At the end of the day, especially with him and Luis Diaz, I just don't ever feel like that works for both parties. It just doesn't look comfortable for both of them. They both like to occupy like the same kind of spaces. Maybe you could try Diaz maybe playing a false. People have spoken about it. Maybe you could potentially do that. I don't know, but I just don't have confidence at all in Nunez playing through the middle unless Klopp decides to change the way he play and actually play as if he's got a striker. If he starts doing that, then yes, maybe we might see those kind of things. But until he does such thing, I just feel like you just stick him out there on the wing. Simple as. You get what I'm trying to say? I can't see why he still can't be effective, still can't do the same things that we see him doing. We can see that he likes to now, we saw in the West Ham game quite a lot that, tracking back and all that kind of stuff. Great. Hear what? Do that over there on the left-hand side. A bit like what Mane was kind of doing. Maybe he can be that kind of raw player like a Sadio Mane. I'm not saying he'll be ever as good as him, but we don't know. We could get a similar thing, a similar kind of output from him, in those kind of positions, and it's just something to try and something to think about. But I just find it funny that to all the people who spent months convincing everybody else he's going to be the best number 9 in the world, he's going to do this, he's going to do that, blah 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 blah, what's it now, 10 11 games without a goal? Yeah, that don't sound like the best striker out there. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And it's not like he was pulling up trees in terms of goals before that. So when we're then looking at him now, it's a bit like, okay, like, are we going to push him out to another, like to the left wing position and make that his position? Hey, I've got no problem with putting players in another position if you genuinely believe that that's his position. And I do feel like this isn't a Curtis Jones situation where I'm like, you've literally had to shoehorn him into central midfield because that wasn't his position. I feel like he could easily play there. Then do it. But then that's also going to sell me that, yeah, he was never going to be the striker. You need to go out there and sign a striker, sign the bad boy, sign the guy who's just going to put the ball in the back of the net, the guy that is going to do everything that you, I guess, you want him or need him to do, or that we need him to do in this team, but be able to put the ball in the back of the net on a consistent basis. Obviously, we've got Jota there, who I feel probably could be that player, but he's too inconsistent in terms of his injuries. He can't really stay fit. That's not really good. Do you know what I mean? And as time keeps going on and on, these kind of things will cost us, I believe, in the future. So, like I say, man, it's not to tarnish, it's not to, berate Nunez or anything like that. Listen, if you rate him, you rate him. If you don't, you don't. It is what it is. Like, it's just one of those kind of things. Like, with Darwin Nunez, it's almost just a level of acceptance, which shouldn't be, but it is just a level of acceptance with someone like Nunez, just to understand, like, this guy ain't the guy. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And I don't think he ever will be the guy, but maybe we need to start utilizing his skill set a bit better in potentially a different position. But you guys let me know, of course, in the comment section what you think, how you see it, how you want to see it. Is, am I just chatting complete shit? Is it just a case of, no, keep him up front, he'll turn it, we have to keep persisting, even though he's only got 4 league goals, but yep, let's just keep persisting and doing all of that kind of stuff. Fair enough if that's the case. Does Klopp need to change the style of play? We know that's not going to happen, so guess what? Let's rub that out of contention. And is it just a case of, nope, let's move him out to that, to that left wing position and, take it from there kind of thing? I don't know. I haven't got the answers. I don't really know, but I would like to hear what you guys obviously think about that. And with that, on that note, I will end the video there. Thank you guys for obviously tuning in to the channel. Make sure you guys are obviously smashing the like. Make sure you do share. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel. I'm G, and if I don't speak to you guys before then, Merry Christmas and have a happy New Year.